when your ducks are in a row? Or are
My ducks are rowed.
podcast? I am Brad talking to Josh.
What's up?
I feel like I'm yelling. This is the podcast where we review albums that are turning 20 years old. I generally say mostly metal for whatever it's worth. In this particular situation, that will not be the case. But we give
This isn't
a
metal?
rating of 1 through... I mean, it's... I say inside baseball a lot, I think, but I'm going to do it again.
Sick.
the way I broke down our albums in our list was like, if I personally am going to define it as metal. Now, my a parent, like my mom or something, might hear this album and say it's metal. I wouldn't say that's necessarily wrong, but I was more like, is this just screaming about blood and murder, or is there something else going on?
There's something else
that's kind of
going
how I
on.
separated it. Yeah. But yeah, we give a score of 1 through 5 for different criteria, with a total of 20 points available from each of us, with a total of 40 points available overall. And this week we are talking about 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge by My Chemical Romance.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Maybe a little bit of a spoiler. We're kind of talking about this offline, but I don't know how long this might be good for people who probably think we talk too much.
Oh, yeah.
Last week's episode being probably a good example of that. Maybe by the time it releases, I'll have edited it down, but if not, it's an hour, so buckle up.
This is weird too, because like neither of us had really listened to that album, and we had a lot to say about it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've never listened to this album.
Nope.
And I don't have as much to say about it. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
It just, yeah, we'll get into it. We will get into it.
We'll get into it. So, My Chemical Romance started in Newark, New Jersey, actually. So it's funny doing some of this research. They have a lot of influences, and one of them being the Misfits. So some people kind of tied that whole New Jersey punk scene to their birth. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And I kind of like subconsciously know that you're going to do some of this stuff, so right. I focus elsewhere, but that's not strange. That fact makes sense. I mean, it checks out.
It definitely checks out. The band formed in 2001, so they were active for 3 years at this time. One prior release, I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love, released in 2002 on a different record label. And this one came out June 28th, 2004. So if you were sitting back in 2004 just wondering what to do with your life, and it was before June, you probably had no direction. But once this album came out, you knew what you were doing.
Sick. Well, June 8th, by the way.
Yes, June 8th.
Yeah.
So there was a week in June where you were still just awash in a drift of cosmic nothingness.
I know it's on purpose, but man, that sounds so condescending.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Also, this is just a random thing I ran into, but did you know Reprise Records, like the label they were on, was started by Frank Sinatra?
I did not know that. I didn't. That's bonkers.
That is wild. Yeah. Man, 6 degrees of separation is no joke. I mean, if you can get from Frank Sinatra to My Chemical Romance in less than like 30 years,
yeah,
that's pretty nuts. Yeah.
That is, man, that is bonkers.
Yeah, that is so weird. Also, a thing that's kind of cool about them before you maybe, get into your next thing or whatever, out of all the bands maybe I'm misspeaking here. Well, Unearth would probably be one, but not a lot of members. They've kind of been the same group of dudes for the most part.
I noticed that actually. They did replace a drummer, which I was very thankful for because I did not like the drums on this album one bit.
Really.
Yeah,
There were moments. I mean, we'll get into it. I don't disagree with you though. There what if you listen to our Unearth review, I had a lot to say about that too, where it was just like, man, that part could have sucked, but Justin came through and made it interesting. And in this one, it was just like, I mean, he did what
he did.
I don't know.
I guess.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not like bad, I guess. It's just it was the bare minimum.
Yeah,
but
the
you know,
bare
I don't know
minimum.
but a lot of punk was like that.
That's true.
I
He
don't
was a
know, but
founding
I
member,
don't.
by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's
Yeah.
of note.
Yeah, I mean it is. It's interesting.
Yeah. So I actually, I kind of dug in a good bit because I don't know a whole lot about My Circular Robot.
Oh man.
Almost got
man.
through it.
My cauterized rhubarb, you know?
I'm done. Okay.
Oh. Yep. I'm going to be honest with everyone and say it is taking a lot of restraint to not do that for probably 20 minutes straight.
Yeah.
Because I could.
Yeah.
Oh.
We're going to have to cut so much of this because I'm...
Man, maybe. I mean, if
Ooh.
it's not going to be long anyways, at least people can hear us talking about, like, our colorblind rollerblades. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Also,
so,
I didn't note any of these, by the way. I purposely didn't. I knew we talked about it a little bit before, but I was like, I'm not going to try. I'm just in the moment going to try to think of what I can. Anyway, yeah,
Good.
go ahead.
Yeah. Getting back to my crabby room.
Oh, man, this is not going to be funny to anybody but us.
Nope.
Oh,
But
okay.
it is so funny.
Yeah.
Sweet move.
Yep.
All right. But yeah, really wanted to
Yeah.
dig into them, figure out because they were huge. I mean, they were
Humongous.
undeniably humongous. 2004, like everybody was into them.
Yeah.
More people probably around us too than I even realized. So listening to this album, I was kind of getting flashbacks of like Fletcher or some of the bands that like Kyle Martin was in, or
Oh, yeah, Kyle Martin. Yeah, well, I mean, and like the whole like group that we ended up being kind of associated with like Katie and all of them, like
Yeah.
all of those people were like diehards for these dudes.
yeah. So yeah, after listening to the album, like I get it. I don't not get it, but overall,
Yeah.
it was all right for me.
Yeah.
So, who is on this album? You mentioned they don't have a whole lot of members, which is pretty cool. Gerard Way is lead and backing vocals. He was the other founding member along with Mike Pelissier, the drummer.
Pelissier. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. What a cool
Ray,
name.
yeah. He was replaced after this album by a fella named Bob Breyer, and I didn't listen to the next album. I'm curious to see how I feel about the drumming.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know that part, but I did find the drums in the same way that you did, so I actually would be pretty interested in see what the next album. I probably will check that out now, actually.
Yeah.
Now that you point it out.
And then Ray Toro, lead guitar, backing vocals. Frank Iero, rhythm guitar, backing vocals. So this was the first album that he was featured on all of the tracks. So I'm guessing he kind of came in I say I'm guessing because I just genuinely didn't read it, but I'm guessing
which dude was it?
Frank Iero, the rhythm guitar player. I'm guessing he was on some of the previous album.
Yeah, because he wasn't part of the founding. It doesn't look like Mikey Toro. Those are both founding dudes, but
yeah, Mikey Way
and Ray Toro,
the brother of Gerard Way, bass guitar. So I didn't know this. The lead singer, Gerard Way, he wrote the Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I did know that. So I went down a rabbit hole of his specifically.
That's
Matt
a good call.
Heafy from Trivium brought out an album like 2 years ago, probably, maybe a little longer. I'm probably totally off, but anyway, and it was with Isan. I'm probably butchering that. I think if it's Isan, but the dude from Emperor, he did a like collaboration album with the Emperor guy, and it's a really unique record. But the My Chemical Romance dude, Gerard Way, does black metal vocals on it.
Oh, sick! Maybe.
And they're really good. Like they're very, very top notch black metal vocals, which is very strange. But once I realized that, I was like, man, this guy he's kind of all over the place. And then that's when I found out he wrote the Umbrella Academy. So good for him, man. He's got a lot going on.
Yeah. So the album charted at 28 on the Billboard 200 between 2004 and 2006, and it went platinum less than a year after its release. So
damn.
Like when we say this, like if you're listening to this and you have heard of My Chunky Road Sign, then you definitely get it. Like you already know. Last one, I promise.
Oh God. Oh man.
It's so dumb.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah, I mean, like, that's none of that's surprising. It was one of the tracks, like, to kind of get into it here a little bit, but like when I got to I'm Not Okay, which back then we had to do the whole parentheses I promise thing. But like that is where I just didn't want to keep going, because that song in 2004 was like the early 2000s version of the mid 90s Smells Like Teen Spirit. It was like fucking on everything all the time. Like radio stations that didn't previously play stuff like this were playing that song.
I can't even promise that I heard it though. Like it didn't sound familiar to me.
No, and I got to that was the first one. Like Helena is a giant song also.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't overplayed as much, and I actually liked Helena at the time. I mean, that I've always liked that song.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's a great song. Honestly, well, we'll get to it later. That's one of my favorites on the album. But it's once I got to I'm Not Okay, I was like, can I listen to this whole song again? I just don't know. It's not bad, It's fine. It's just I've been sick of it for 20 years.
Yeah.
So but the rest of the album was not that way. So it was the only hiccup I really had where I had a hard time kind of soldiering through.
Yeah. So 13 songs, with one being an interlude. Not a long album overall, about right at 40-ish minutes. Pretty enjoyable to get through. What'd you think of like the general tone or the pace of the album?
It's fine. I also next to interlude, by the way, because like I'll do like 8 interlude, go down and indent to A, and it says who cares. That's it. So the pace of the album, I do think it varies a decent amount, which is cool, more than I would have expected. Like give 'em Hell, Kid, really cool intro that's kind of off the wall, and there's a lot of that. Their intros seem to be pretty unique and interesting.
Yeah.
A solid mid-tempo punk, vibe throughout. if I'm giving a blanket statement for the album overall rather than like individually,
Mm-hmm.
I found most of the choruses to sound almost exactly the same.
That's
I'm not
so funny you would say that. Continue your thought, and I'll tell you why I think that.
Well, and it's like, not in a bad way. I mean, I expect certain types of music, and this happens in metal too, by the way. This has nothing to do with the fact that it's a non-metal album. But certain bands and sounds are formulaic on purpose, and the choruses are good. I'm not saying they're bad. I got to song... Let me see. Where am I? So, if I get to track 6, up until track 6, The Ghost of You, every song I basically said the chorus sounds the same.
Yeah.
So, and again, I'm not saying that with any negativity or positivity. But they all just sounded the same to me, and they didn't stick out in any way, but I bet they're easy to remember, and it's all catchy. So there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, this is akin to pop. I mean, I understand that is probably not something some people would probably want to hear, but
right.
There's nothing wrong with that. Again, that's not a thing I'm saying with any negativity or positivity either. But yeah, up until track 6, I basically said every single chorus pretty much sounds the same.
I totally feel that. And getting into like some of the genres you're describing, so it's got 6 genres listed on even just the Wikipedia page for this album. And I guess that's kind of been a thing with My Chemical Romance over the years. You see, I showed restraint and used the real name.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good job.
They kind of have like, they've got a lot of influences that you could pick out, and they've never really landed solidly in a genre. So it's emo, alternative rock, pop punk, post-hardcore, punk rock, which for the first 6 songs, I definitely got like a straight up punk vibe, which was pretty cool.
A lot more punk than I was expecting. I mean, again, I always liked Helena, and it's pretty punk, so I guess I don't know why I was surprised. And The Ghost of You is the only other song on the album that I listened to with any sort of regularity because Lauren Babbitt covered it.
Oh, sick.
And it's really good. The cover is very good. But it also got me to then listen to the original because I was, when I hear a cover, I almost immediately want to compare it to the original.
Right.
So, yeah, it's such a good song. And because, like, the Ghost of You doesn't seem punk at all. No. It's like the feeling of hopelessness in the song to me gives it a really cool quality that's unique. It's like strange to feel like a sadness while something is catchy enough to be memorable. Yeah. So I think that's really cool to do.
That song starts like a 3-song kind of tempo change for me in the album. Like that, the Jet Set Life and Interlude kind of all have this middle. They kind of slow the album down in a meaningful way, not in a bad way at all. I think the album really needed it to be in there because a lot of the reviews centered on like, this album, it's pretty frantic, start to finish. There's not a whole lot of slowdown. There's not a whole lot of filler. Those short breaths are kind of nice as an overall thing for the album.
Totally agree. Again, I actually, it's funny because that's exactly what I called out on mine. Well, Interlude, it's whatever. I just don't have a positive opinion about shit like that at all.
I like it
fine.
Only for the way Thank You for the Venom starts right after it.
That I am on board with, and the fact that it's 57 seconds long makes me like it more. Because that's what usually my problem is. I think we just talked about it with Unearthed, where I was like, why is Aries like 3 minutes long? It didn't need to be that long. Like the interlude got the same point across, but they did it in less than a minute. So in that way, I do commend them, and I appreciate the wherewithal to go, this doesn't have to go on forever to show that we're trying to create an emotional ride for people here. Yeah. I actually said on track 7 that the Jet Set Life is Gonna Kill You, that it's funny that I kept calling out this whole all the choruses sound the same, and then 6 and 7 don't at all.
Right.
They're totally different. Though this, and I have no idea which one would have come first, and it's not even a judgment, but the chorus for Jet Set, there is a Cold song that has like an identical chorus to that. Like, if I didn't come across that so late in my review, like my notes, I would have looked for it, but it's, again, not a bad thing at all. That's fine. I doubt those two bands had literally any knowledge of one another, so
you might be surprised. And I'm going to dive into like why the choruses might sound the same to everyone's ear, honestly. So the album was produced by Howard Benson. He's big time producer. One of the reviews
Huge.
kind of talks about, how his spot on this album kind of moved them into the big leagues, kind of took some of the rookie aspects off their previous album recording and kind of packaged it up in a more professional way. So I looked up Howard Benson. He also did Kelly Clarkson's Stronger album.
Also he did Cold, Year of the Spider.
There you go.
Wow, that's interesting. He did
a lot of Christian rock too, but like those couple of tidbits, and then I was diving into the album artwork a little bit, and there's this interview. I want to actually make sure I get the author correct, on Loudwire. So they did.
Okay.
Loudwire published a 10 facts about 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge only superfans would know. And one of those facts was, there's a quote from the band members: Howard Benson taught us how to write choruses. He taught us how to make catchy music.
That is so interesting. And it's funny too. Wow, that's really cool. I love how sometimes things like that just organically work out. Again, for those of you who don't know, Josh and I purposely don't talk about these things until we're on. So I have no idea really what he took away from it. He doesn't know what I took away from it. So I'm super glad that I pointed that out, and seemingly there is a good explanation as well. Also, that dude recorded fucking everybody.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, that's absolutely insane. And yeah, he did Trust Company. How about that? Anyone listen to Trust Company? Bet not.
Nope.
Bet not.
Did a lot of Skillet and POD too, and Flyleaf.
Yeah.
His body of work is very strange to me.
Wild. Yeah, it's all over the place. He did the Head Automatica stuff. Well, I'll save it for when we talk about the production, but
yeah.
No, that's crazy. Well, I totally lost my train of thought. Well, so we get through track 8 essentially.
Yep.
And then track 9, pretty much on, we're right back into the first few track choruses again.
Yeah, for sure.
It was cool to have a reprieve. And again, I can't overstate this. I'm not saying that in a negative way. I get it. This is what you want to do as a musician trying to make a living in music. Like, this is what you get. A good producer, they help you because they know what they're doing and they've been successful, and you let them help you because you know it will help you be successful. Right. So all good. I'm not shit talking it in that way. I'm just saying that if you told me to point out some of the different choruses and tell you what song they're on, unless the lyrics tied to the title, I probably wouldn't be able to do it.
Right.
Though I'm not okay is because that's all he says. I do not like that song. I can't, and it's a bias that I have from 20 years of it, but it's the only song I truly don't like on the album.
I wonder how much of that was influenced by their grandmother passing away when this album was being written, because it was supposed to be a full concept album, and it ended up being like a half-assed concept album with bits of the lead singer sprinkling in, like, exploring his grief about the passing of his grandmother, who seemingly like helped get them started. She bought them their first touring van. She always encouraged like their creative outlets. So seemingly a very large influence, but like that, I wonder how much of that event kind of shaped like the overall tone of the album, and if how much different it could or would have been if it was just a straight up concept album, if it would have been nearly as successful.
Yeah, that's interesting. So again, I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but in my notes, I said like clearly I'm not trying to like stereotype anyone or paint with a broad brush. I know that like I would have at the time considered this like emo / punk or punk / emo,
100%.
whichever order. Yeah, and I know that a lot of that genre comes with helping of emotional, openness, and which we were always like, in the metal world, it was not against that or anti that, but their metal world was always trying to make like grandiose statements about things like society and whatever and being nihilistic and
looking
all
at
that
you,
stuff.
Shia
Yeah, right. Right. Well, we talked about it a little before that. Like, I know that these two fan bases, especially in 2004. Now, I don't even know if it would matter, but in 2004, man, if you were trying to get a Shai Hulud fan, like to listen to this, or a My Chemical Romance fan to listen to Shai Hulud, they would be like, absolutely not. We are totally different. And it's like, you're really not.
No.
Your outlooks and your mindsets are almost identical, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just funny. I can't picture those two groups being able to coincide with one another back then. Again, things have changed in a good way, I think, as far as that goes. But at this end of the day, you're both just really heartfelt and really emotional, and you're willing to wear your emotions on your sleeve, which is good.
Just exploring it in different ways or different results, not even different mediums, like the exact same medium, literally.
Just a different outcome. Yeah, I mean, yeah. But like, so yeah, I did put that. I said that like, I didn't get too into the lyrics in this. I read them, but again, I'm not a huge fan of that sort of thing a lot. But he does it well, and it's not as like on the nose as I expected a lot of it to be. It's very metaphoric, and very the lyrics are really good, and a lot of them are a bummer. Cemetery Drive being a huge bummer, in a perfectly fine way. It's just like, I don't express my emotions in a way that this is expressing its emotion, and and they should be doing it in whatever the way they want to. But for me, I'm just like, I just want to be happy for a minute. And it's like, and you get into the different ones, like I Never Told You What I Do for a Living, which are like tongue in cheek a little bit, and those are really cool. But yeah, there are certain ones that like I said, Cemetery Drive specifically, where I actually put notes down that said, this dude had to be going through something. I mean, I didn't know what it was, but there you go. It's probably that. Because there's a couple of songs on. Because in The Ghost of You as well. Like, it's so sad. It's just profoundly sad. It's incredible, but it's very, very sad. So, interesting. Yeah. There we go. Another synchronicity that I wasn't expecting. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Helena,
what about you? With
you know Helena?
Yeah.
Their grandmother's name was Elena.
Ah. Is it Helena or Helena?
Helena? Who knows?
Helena I guess you're probably right. It's Helena. Great Misfits song.
Unless you're Graves and it's Helena.
True. I love that song though. So good.
If I cut off your arms and I cut off your legs.
So good. That was one of those Misfits songs that I didn't really like at the time. And then when I kind of ran through all the 50 Misfits songs that I did like, I started going to the other ones, and I'm like, oh, this is really good. Turns out he ended up being a Proud Boy, though.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Michael Graves, yeah, he's a like neo-Nazi or whatever now, so that's a bummer.
That is a bummer. That's kind of like antithetical to everything that the Misfits would have stood for, I feel like.
There's a lot of talk about them being racist and pro-white person back in the day with Danzig.
No.
I don't think they are now, but...
Jerry, only give us a call and clear the air here.
Well, Jerry Only, I think, is the reason everyone else kept leaving, because I think he ended up like finding God and like a whole bunch of stuff. So I would venture to bet that Jerry Only and Von Frankenstein probably don't feel that way, but I'm going to venture and bet that Danzig still might. Not trying to throw shade, but and this is all I tried to listen to. There's a podcast called No Dogs in Space. It's on the Last Podcast Network. And he deep dives bands, and he deep dives. Like, he did I don't even remember, 4 or 5 parter on Misfits.
Sick.
Yeah. I listened to like half of the first episode, and I'm like, I'm going to choose ignorance here.
Oh,
I am going to choose ignorance. Yeah.
Oh, no.
It wasn't that bad yet. I was just worried that it was going to get bad, so I kind of hit the eject button before. Yeah. And maybe it didn't, and maybe I judged too early, but it didn't seems like they might have been pretty shitty back in the day.
Crap. Crap.
I'm surprised that's the first tangent we've went on about the Misfits and all this. I guess this would be the appropriate album.
This would be the one. Yep.
Yeah.
Although, so getting back to the album and their influences, like when I was listening to this, I was like, this is a lot closer to a Dillinger Escape Plan album than I would expect it to be.
Yes. Like in its ability to just do weird shit, like here and there, and like
weird shit, just the overall pace and tone of the album. Like, I was like, this is not so different. Even his vocals and his style of singing, like, it's not so far off of Greg Puciato. Like, I would be curious to somebody like who loves My Chemical Romance to listen to a Dillinger album and give us some honest feedback on that direction.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely going to be times where I doubt you're going to listen to, what's the first track off Miss Machine? Oh, man, I cannot ever think. And it's driving me insane. Panasonic Youth. Like, so don't get me wrong. I understand that if you listen to Panasonic Youth, you're probably not going to, draw the line between those two things. But I think if you take it more as, a thought process and an approach, even though they end up with with different results, it seems like their headspace is kind of similar. I will just put, a dance beat right here over, a thing that sounds like it's being played in an Old West saloon. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of that on this My Chemical Romance album. So I don't disagree. Again,
and you know what? We got Dillinger coming up later in the year, hopefully too.
We do. Oh, we're doing Miss Machine.
Sick.
Oh, was there any time that you can think of? Because I can. We're at the skate park, right? Listening to Miss Machine on the way, whatever it is.
Yep.
And everyone there, all the dudes that are a little older, I don't know, man, it's not calculating infinity. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. It's incredible. Right. Yeah, but it seems like it's got a little. I was like, dude, it's like one of the best pieces of music I've ever heard in my entire life, and is still to this day. I don't want to get too off on a tangent about something that we probably will talk about for an hour. Later in the year, but yeah, no, that's a good call out by you. I did say that a lot in my track by track notes, just saying really weird thing that's really interesting and cool, and I didn't see coming, which helps the chorus thing for me a little bit. It does alleviate it didn't wear me down as bad as it could have if it was less interesting overall.
So what do you think about these tracks? You got anything you want to say about these tracks?
We've pointed out some specifics. I will say that, well, it really sucks. My least favorite song on the album, I'm Not Okay. It sucks that the best part in it is the rant he does before the last chorus, and his vocals get really, really fucking cool.
Yep.
But I love it. The only part that I don't love about it is back then, that rant thing had already kind of become obligatory and cliche in a lot of different types of music. So I was just it sucks that my favorite vocal part so far in the album was doing something I really wish it wasn't doing. But at the same time, overall, it's still a really cool part. It's just, it sucks that it's like, I would have loved it to have not been the rant thing. But
right.
It's still really cool. And one of the things that kind of sucks too is like Hang 'em High. The problem with this is my first breakdown was saying how the vocal performance is all over the place in a very cool way on Hang 'em High.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this dude's capable of so much, which, yeah, your comparison to Greg that's actually pretty, the way he goes from like clean to harsh is the same kind of technique that both would use. So that is pretty cool. But then I found out there's a guest vocalist on Hang 'em High. And now I'm like,
okay.
Well, I mean, it's a very cool song. So,
yeah.
And it's weird. And I like how weird it is.
It is really cool. Who is that there guest vocalist?
It was a dude from
Keith
like
Morris,
a punk band that
from Black Flag.
Yeah. And Keith Morris ended up in Black Flag?
Yeah.
That's
Circle
interesting.
Jerks.
Oh, he co-founded Black Flag. Oh. Yeah. So they must have replaced him with why can't I think of his name? Oh my god, this is the worst. He is so famous. It's unreal. Henry Rollins.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to... By the way, I know people feel very strongly about Black Flag. If that is not a fact, write it off, guys. I don't care if you're mad. I just mentioned it on the fly. Yes, I'm probably wrong. My bad. Calm down. Yeah, I knew him mostly from the Circle Jerks, though, for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, so he's on that, and that made me have to go, well, still a varied vocal performance, but part of that might be because there's two people. So,
could have been.
I don't know.
I don't have a whole lot to say about the tracks individually. I already touched on like the beginning of Thank You for the Venom. I love it.
Yeah.
I love the way it comes in after interlude.
Yep.
But to your point, they did not have Mike Justian on this album, and the drums just took a big old poop after something that should have been really cool, and I was so disappointed.
Yeah, it's funny, too, for Thank You for the Venom, my first note on that is someone was influenced by their appearances at Hellfest in the early aughts. Because that intro is very reminiscent of the time period in a lot of different bands. But, like, because they were on that 2003 Hellfest DVD that we watched to death.
No shit.
Yeah, and they sounded nothing like this, as far as I can remember, which makes sense if they got involved with such a high-profile producer. But, yeah, I mean, they played, like, right after Norma Jean or right before Norma Jean.
That tracks. People called them, like, the previous album a lot more, like, screamo.
Yeah.
So, I thought that.
But, yeah, so I agree. Really cool intro to that song, though, and it does suck that, you're right, the drums did nothing for it. But, yeah. That's probably, I did take it. I wrote a lot of notes, but honestly, a lot of them are repeating, thoughts I had previously. So I say, review.
This is the review of My Classical Remembrance.
It's a good one.
I got My Critical Rain Dance, and I was pretty happy about that.
That's pretty good. That's almost too good.
Too good.
To where
my Canonical Reptile is just dumb.
What about My Crayola Reptar?
I like it.
I don't know. Reptar. Rugrats, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where that was in my brain. That was lodged in there somewhere deep and dark.
My crummy Rugrats.
Oh, man. Honestly, I'm not kidding. I could have done this for the entire episode. I'm glad we reeled it in a little bit, but Anyway, so what? Oh man,
Hit me.
yeah. What do you think of the artwork?
I think that the album artwork is very cool.
Yep.
So it was drawn by the singer. He does comic books, as we mentioned, with his work on the Umbrella Academy. He was doing artwork before he was doing this. I think it was a really cool styling. It fits the concept of what the album was supposed to be really well. Which, just to go into it briefly, apparently it was like two star-crossed lovers, both died. The guy goes to hell. The devil tells him she's still alive. You can have her if you go up there and kill 1,000 evil men and bring me their souls, and I'll reunite you two.
Wow, that's cool as hell.
Yeah, so that's why it's got that kind of like, bloodied cover. Reminds me a little bit of like the Kill Bill kind of anime sort of stylized bit.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I gave it a 4 overall, and it's based on, let me get this right, a 1928 surrealist painting called The Lovers.
All right, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you just talked to me right from a 4 to a 5.
Sick.
Because I had it at a 4 just on face value, and the fact that it's tied to that concept makes it way cooler.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, it's almost if someone were, I don't know, it made me think of Vampire Hunter D and the Misfits all at the same time in a strange way. And I was like, for something to be able to pull from those two dramatically different directions in my brain, I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, I give it a 5. I like it a lot.
You know what? I'm gonna upgrade. To a 5 because I put the 4 down before I knew all that and really processed it. And in that Loudwire interview thing, so they switched directions on the content of the album when the grandma passed away. They asked him like, okay, well, how's the story end? You never finished it. And the singer ended up saying like, so he gets to 999 souls and then decides like the last one he has to take is his own for killing 1,000 men.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so depressing.
Yeah. It really is. Huge bummer.
Oh man, that is a bummer.
Yeah.
Brilliant. It's a really
incredible.
No wonder he came up with the Umbrella Academy, but my God, that is
I haven't seen it.
Quite sad. It's good.
I bet.
It's good.
Seemingly.
It's weird. It's weird.
I bet.
In a good way. Yep. And after we just talked about all that, none of that should be surprising.
Now I really am convinced to check it out, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about the production then versus now?
Okay, so we might have to dive into this, but I gave the production a 2, and I think I'm going to stick to that pretty hard.
Okay.
So the drums are super duper prominent, and they shouldn't be, because 1, they're not that great, and 2, they're just not adding a whole lot overall. The overall tone to me is just a little it's a little treble heavy, so there's just a lot of high in there that I was craving. Even the bass is high. You've got this high end producer, and reading some of the reviews, I kind of get why it ended up sounding the way it did. They wanted it to still sound frantic. You don't want to take a band's sound away from them through production. You want them to have that raw quality, and the reviewer actually kind of used the phrase, it's cleaned up from their earlier album, but not overly polished, which I agree with. Mm-hmm. And they were doing some different stuff, like with the vocal tracking that you talked about. And there's an auto-tune-y bit. There's some cool panning on it. So, but overall, it just sonically doesn't work very well for me.
That's interesting, and this is the second time this has happened, and I'm wondering if I should start listening to these on my earbuds rather than my studio monitors, because the bass was solid on my end. I thought it, because so I ended up on a 4. Because like, and the reason I even pulled up the producer, so my first thought was maybe next to Dimmu Borgir, this is the biggest budget that we've listened, like album that we've listened to, has to be.
Yeah.
Because I could tell even if the production has a little bit of that rawness in it, which it does, I don't disagree with that, but you could just tell that whoever produced it was a pro. Like, there was no way around it. Yeah. And like, so that's why I even got to the guy, because I was just like, whoever this is had to have been good. And then I didn't look at specifics, but I pulled up the list and was just like, Jesus Christ. This dude's recorded like 7,000 albums that I've heard of, like 6,490 of them or something. Right. But like, that's interesting. Wow. Yeah.
I guess I'm being a little hypocritical in my approach, because like I listened to Blood Has Been Shed and I think I gave that a high mark just because it was so indicative. Like the sound was so indicative of the album. I think you could make an argument that this one is similarly so, but I'm going to stick with my 2.
That's fair. And like, so, and that was kind of my pivot on Pig Destroyer a little bit, where I said, like, I don't think the production for Pig Destroyer was particularly good. But I just didn't want it to sound any other way. And that's kind of how I landed here. Okay. Cause I was actually, I started at a 3, but the more I listened to it and to like your little odds and ends that were happening is kind of what got me over the 3 hump to a 4. Is I was like,
I gotcha.
And again, that's what was making me think like this producer must be like, the real deal. Of course, obviously it is. Yeah. But yeah, I don't disagree with your 2 either. Like I could easily be talked into either one. It genuinely could have come down to the headphones. You know what I mean? It really could have. I don't know.
I listened in my heavies.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I totally get it. All right. Well, that's.
How's it hold up though? I don't think we touched really on.
Well, and see, that was my thing. I think it holds up great. It sounds to me like the thought process of a pop record. In that nothing is overtly in your face necessarily. The drums, you're right.
Drums.
But you know what's funny? I do think if the drummer was better, it probably wouldn't have been as obnoxious. Like, because it would have been like, cool.
I agree. Yeah, I agree 100%. But he wasn't, and it is.
I know. And it's funny. I pulled up some more recent kind of stuff. I don't even remember what it was now, but it sounds the same as what this genre of music is doing right now. Like it hasn't really changed much. Metal has changed tremendously over that same time period, but this sounds pretty much exactly like what everything like this sounds like right now. I'm not saying that in like a rip-off kind of way, but it seems like the approach, someone must have heard this and liked it and decided, yeah, that's about right. We'll just keep doing that.
A lot of people heard this and liked it. This weird tidbit. So they did. We didn't touch on whether or not they're still active. They are. They were broken up for about 6 years, but got back together in 2019. So they played a reunion show, and so I don't know if the math on this is correct, but it said the reunion concert grossed almost $1.5 million. With an attendance of 5,113.
Wow.
I'm not confident that number is correct, but if it is, that's like almost $300 a ticket.
I'm not surprised by that because I can't remember who it was. Someone I knew when they announced that were like, dude, I wanted to go, but I couldn't afford the tickets.
Damn.
And it was just like, and I remember thinking like, I know they're huge, fucking huge. Like almost nothing we've touched on so far is this big. Again, maybe Dimmu Borgir. It's not comparable though, because, Scandinavia, they like their fucking black metal, and Europe kind of follows along suit, and those bands get monstrous. But no, they're fucking huge. Yeah. Absolutely huge. That's insane. Yeah, that math is... And you've got to figure that that's the average, so... I don't like to even think about that. Ugh.
Nope.
All right, man. Good for them. Hey, Man. Wow.
So,
all right.
We mentioned they're huge. What impact did this album have on you at the time?
Yeah. I feel bad when I do more or less enjoy an album as I go. I can't give it more than a 1. It did nothing for me at the time. I liked Helena. I liked that song just fine, but and yeah, they were on those whatever those tours were, the Taste of Chaos tours with like Kill Switch Engage and stuff like that. So like they were in my field of vision. It didn't reach me like it reached the people that it did.
Right. So I'm right there with you. I did give it a 2 just because listening to it made me kind of realize like how much it influenced people that we were like growing up with and playing shows with. Yeah. So like, we were writing songs together. I'm sure their influences influenced us, even if it was like, we're not going to do that. Like,
yeah.
Like there may have been some of that. So, I kicked it up from a 1 to a 2 because I did enjoy it overall. And like, we probably were influenced, not to copy it, but to kind of like counterculture it almost a little bit more harshly than, we would have been if it wasn't so huge. So their influence got to us, maybe not in a direct or a positive way, but I did have to bump it up for that.
I have to also. I can't even argue with anything you almost got me up to a 3 from that explanation. Because like, there's no way that wasn't the case. Where I'm like, all right, well, I'm not fucking doing this here. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, which by the way, don't act like that. Everyone out there,
right?
Like, just let people like their shit as long as it's not hurting anybody.
Right. It's a very emotionally unintelligent way to approach life.
It really is, and I was very emotionally unintelligent at the time. Well, I still am. Just a little less.
We all do our best.
Yeah. So I'll bump it to it. Man, you really have got me arguing with myself about a 2 or a 3 now.
Damn.
It's interesting.
2.5.
I'll stay on a 2. Can't do it. Not doing it, man. Dan's. Do you know what he's mentioning when he says release the Shai Hulud cut?
You asked me, and I haven't asked him, and I don't know.
Well, so there's when that Cats movie that was like all CGI.
Oh yeah.
When they were like yeah. So the original cut of that had literal cat buttholes.
No, it didn't.
Yeah. Like, people have seen it. Like, this isn't like a Mandela effect situation. Yeah. And the person had it changed last minute. Like, the initial run in theaters, cat buttholes.
No.
Just on display for the world to see. Yeah.
I don't believe this.
So, like, yeah. And so there's a whole thing called release the butthole cut. And I haven't asked Dan. I did like his comment and told him I wish we were big enough for this to catch on as a hashtag. But like, I can't think of anything else he's talking about. But I think if you Google release the butthole cut, you'll find that it's about cats. Yeah,
I hope so. Because if I'm typing that into my search bar, I hope that's what comes up.
Oh man,
I'm gonna do that.
Thanks, Dan.
I'm gonna do that on a computer at the library, not my home internet.
Good call. Anyway, ask Dan. Dan, if you're listening to this one and you make it this far, please comment on this episode and tell me whether I'm right or wrong. I would really appreciate it. All right. Yeah, so there you go. Pretty cool sidebar.
Yeah.
What? I'm literally page 7, the podcast that's under Last Podcast Network. Their tour was called Release the Butthole Cut Tour. because they're like a pop culture podcast where they talk about everything relevant in pop culture at the time. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Pretty cool. So we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but how much did you enjoy listening to the album today?
I liked it overall. Yeah. I gave it a 4 today. I've listened to it a few times now. Definitely got there's some standout songs amongst the ones that kind of do tend to sound the same, but I probably won't go to it a lot, but it was a nice.
Yeah.
It was nice on this list of albums that we're going to review to throw in and kind of just listen to something I hadn't heard before. So no, it's cool. I gave it a 4.
Yep. I have absolutely nothing to add. 4 for me too, for the same reasons. I mean, exactly the same reasons. It was a pleasant album to listen to. I'm glad that we put it on the list. We're gonna have a lot more like this too, everybody. Like, we aren't, even though we might have been against it at the time, we are not ignorant to the fact that the universe we were in 2004 included this.
Right.
Because,
in a
like,
big way.
you know, oh yeah, I mean, a lot of our friends that were going to our like metalcore, hardcore shows were wearing My Chemical Romance shirts, like in Bayside and First to Last and all that stuff. So yeah, we're gonna touch a lot on it. And try to put ourselves in a position to listen to stuff that we haven't and we don't have any opinions about. And hopefully that is enjoyable in between the ones that we've had opinions about for 20 years.
Right. Sure.
Odds of us, you know, swaying on those being less likely. So yeah, I give it a 4. What is your favorite song on the album?
My favorite was definitely The Ghost of You, just because it represented that shift in tone in the album. It's a little different. It's got that nice little guitar riff that kind of carries through the whole song subtly in the background. I just thought it was really well written. It catches your attention because it is in the midst of some more, you know, just straightforward thrashy punk. So yeah, The Ghost of You is definitely it for me.
Yeah. See, this was actually really hard for me. I had 3 that are basically like they're tied more or less, but Helena, You Know What They Do to Guys Like Us in Prison, and The Ghost of You all were pretty much tied for very different reasons. I think Helena was just because I already liked it, and it was just like a nice, like, I'm glad I got to start with something I was familiar with.
Yeah.
But I'll go with You Know What They Do to Guys Like Us in Prison. The intro is so weird and cool, and it's just a very unique song. The chorus is very expected, which I don't, you know, but I was only 4 songs in at the time when I got there, so it didn't weigh on me quite as heavily as it did by the end of the album.
Right.
But it was weird, and I also said problematic title.
Not really. Yeah, the lyrics were to, you know, explore the theme of homosexuality, and I'm going to make a crude joke here, but there was a guest vocal in this song by a gentleman named Burt McCracken, so probably goes by Phil.
Oh, man.
I know. We can cut that.
Oh, boy. I mean, it wasn't that bad. We didn't even really get that far into it. Burt McCracken sounds familiar. Who was he?
He's the lead singer for The Used.
Oh, yeah. All right, there you go. That'll do it. I was like, man, that name sounds super, super familiar. So yeah, I really like that song, and yeah. But again, any of those 3, if you ask me tomorrow, it'd probably be The Ghost of You.
Sick.
But just for the purpose of being different, I'll say that one, and that way both songs have representation.
Right. So, I guess if you've never listened to My Chemical Romance,
well done.
Yeah. Before, they're a pretty solid band. A lot of lyrics and feelings to explore. This album in particular, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, 2004. If you missed it, go back and listen. If you love it, give it a listen again.
Agreed. Be weird if, out of all the bands we said that about, this would be the weirdest one where someone goes, I really haven't heard of them. It's like, really? Did you hear if his blood has been shed? I don't know what to say about that. That'd be...
I've never heard of Monty Python. I genuinely enjoy the Spam meat product.
I actually really do like Spam. It's delicious.
Okay. Yeah, so cook up some Spam, throw on this album, have yourself a good time. So I'd say with that, Brad's laughing his ass off, and I'm gonna go think of more things we could call this band other than their actual name. And we've been 2 decades too late.
Spam.